About when you first stopped believing in Drew.
It would probably have been a couple weeks after Stacy went missing. Right around mid-November.
So you were initially believing him. What changed it for you?
Well, initially when he called, I believed in him. I mean, he was a friend. Just the way he was acting, going out his back door, crawling through his backyard, us sitting there in a van, waiting to pick him up. Why would somebody do that? Then he would come over here. Originally, grand jury was Wednesday. He would come over here on Wednesdays around 3 o'clock, and he would sit until about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then he'd start making his phone calls to talk to various people that had been at the grand jury. And once he found out that a certain someone hadn't been called in, he would hang up and say, well, that's good. At least I got one more week. He always kept tabs like that, you know what I'm saying? Then he was in here, he was pacing. I mean, if you ever you've heard the saying, he looked guilty. Well, that was Drew. Drew did. He looked guilty.
So he thought he was going to get arrested.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it was every Wednesday, and he was here faithfully. And he would just start making his phone calls. And I'm not so sure that Drew knew exactly how a grand jury totally worked, because he would always find out who was there. For instance, he would get off the phone, and I'd say, who was that? And, he'd say, oh, it was Carcerano. They didn't call him in again. And then, he would say, and plus my son Steve isn't going because he's going on vacation. He was like, so that buys me at least another week. I mean, it was just things like that, I mean, he did not act like the typical husband that, should be grieving his wife. I mean...
What was he acting like?
Guilty. I mean, that was it. Drew looked guilty. He came over one time, just dog-beat tired. I mean, you could see it. He laid down on the couch. He couldn't have been out for more than 2 minutes and jumped up fiercely. I mean, there was many things that made me start thinking something's not right with this guy.
And then you decided that you were going to start working with the police. Tell me about that decision and how you came to start working with the police.
Well, they wanted me to go do a, polygraph test.
Did you?
Yeah, oh yeah, did it. Say, hey, no problem, went down. They asked if they could come. When they came to, talk to me, they wanted to, after we were done, they said, well, do you mind if we search the garage? Not at all, go right ahead. They did. And then when we were standing out front, he said, well, if we need anything else, we'll get back to you. And I said, hey, whatever you need. Well, the next day they stopped back, and they wanted to know if I do, a polygraph, me and Paula both. I agreed to it. Paula didn't. I went and did it. No problem. They said, everything was good.
What were they asking you?
They would ask me stuff like, the guy was saying he had to get a baseline, so he would ask me, like, is your name,
right.
Len, where, are we in Joliet?
What about Drew was he asking?
And then he would say, do you know the whereabouts of Stacy Peterson? No. Did you help dispose of Stacy Peterson? No. Did Drew ever tell you? Just,
right.
And everything went fine.
So they approached you, or you approached them first?
No, they approached us. See, we just waited, figuring they're going to get a hold of us sooner or later. And